Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to a, not really unboxing, but a comparison for Kingdom Rush games. So we have the original Rift in Time, and on the bottom we have Elemental Uprising. These are the two big chest versions, which contained all the different expansions. So what the point of this video is going to be is to kind of just show off some of the similarities and differences between the two. Because although they basically have the same overall gameplay, they have a bunch of various different elements for each one. As stated in the rulebook for Elemental Uprising here, the newer one, is they're not directly compatible. The only thing that is generally compatible between the two of them to cross over is bringing any of the hero characters. So if you have the original or the newer one, you can move the characters back and forth, vice versa. They have a little things you have to change. Whether you're playing with actual regular mode or solo playing, you're using them, they have maybe some special rules. And the Elemental Uprising has a sheet that explains what those are, just because somehow some of their abilities work a little bit differently. But otherwise, for the most part, they should just cross over pretty easily. Then in Elemental Uprising, they also have, so both games have basically an extra scenario mode at the end of the game. After you've played through all the story and the campaigns, they have a mode so you can then take all the different stuff from the core game, the expansions, and make kind of like random scenario out of it. In Rift in Time, it's called Portal Storm. In Element Uprising, it's called Rift, which makes it really confusing. They call it the same name as the first game, but it's the time rifts, or the rifts, whatever. But in the newer one, you can bring the bosses over from the original game, but none of the other tiles, it states. Now, this is all just, for the sake of what it says you can do. Now, I fully believe if you really put your mind to it, you could mix and match a lot more of these stuff back and forth. You're just going to have to be aware that there's some little bit of different gameplay elements in this and that. So I'm going to do is kind of do like a brief overview of what's sort of different, just kind of mention it. Then we're going to actually go through and look at each one. So the rest of this video is going to get a little bit longer, so just a heads up. So then the one thing I'm just going to start, since we're still early in the video, is like, do I have a recommendation on which one you should get over the other? Since they're not directly like mashable, compatible with everything. So if you're like, if I'm going to buy one right now, which one should I go with? I would probably recommend Elemental Uprising. Mainly for the fact is because in the scenarios, the win conditions, and this is one of the biggest differences between the two games, is in Rift in Time, to win the games, you have to stop these portal cards, which I'll pull out and we'll kind of look at them a little bit, kind of see what I mean. But the portal cards are a lot more difficult to defeat, to win each thing, where in Elemental Uprising, each scenario has its own different victory condition. So I feel like Rift in Time plays a lot more like the video game. It's more just, here's a wave of hordes, here's hordes coming, and you just have to try and be stopping them. And it gives you a pretty straightforward view of what you're doing. In Elemental Uprising, you are going to have different missions, like maybe this time you have to stop this guy from advancing so far, or you have to defeat this certain stationary enemy. Or like, one example is one of the expansions, you have sheep, and you actually have to guide the sheep through the map by defeating the enemies that would get in front of them so they don't take damage. I think that makes the overall game, just in that general idea, like, because there's some components that one game has, some components the other game doesn't have, but I think that idea of each scenario having its own special goal versus just win, makes it a little bit more interesting of a game. So there are a couple, like, for the basic rules, everything is more or less the same. Hordes are going to enter from a tile. On one side, they're going to try and get to the end. They jump over each other. You place your towers down, upgrade your towers, place your heroes use attacks. all that stuff generally stays the same. So some minor differences between each other, but I call them minor because they're to be expected. Obviously, each horde has different characters on them. Some do share from one game to the other, but they're gonna have different ones with different special abilities, different layouts. Obviously, bosses are different. The heroes are all going to be different. So it's not going to be a one-to-one comparison. So, like, even if we look on the top of the boxes here, so, like, here are 5 of the heroes from the base game. Box is a little dusty. But, you know, we have, like, a fire guy, an earth guy, a mage, an archer. And then in the other one, you know, we have kind of like a sand guy, an ice person, a mage, dark magic. They're not going to be a direct comparison. There's not like, oh, this guy's the same as this guy. This guy's this guy. They all play a little bit different. They have their own unique things, which definitely makes it fun. And then there's also some other little minor things like that. They're just like the towers are different. So again, you have to kind of expect that. Are one set of towers better than the other? Maybe we'll take a look at them and kind of see. But again, I don't think that should necessarily that shouldn't be like your focal point for, I think, why you should choose it. You might choose it because maybe you like one set of heroes over the other. That is a possibility of way to choose it. But again, it also depends on if you're buying the full box with every single character, or are you just looking at the base game 5 characters, or are you just looking at the expansion? Because if you really like one of the expansion characters, you could buy that character, bring them over to the other side of the games, you know, and vice versa. But yeah, let's say we'll go through like each different little thing and kind of talk about them. So yeah, each mode, each box has like a special, so kind of like things that are not different, but sort of like mirroring each other's. Each one has a bunch of set of bosses. Each one has some unique special hordes. Rift in Time has a couple different decks that let you summon extra hordes out. Like they have characters that are summoners, they get to summon more characters out, more horde cards out. And Elemental Uprising has champions. They kind of have little mini bosses. And I think they're not exactly equal, but I think they kind of provide an interesting, unique challenge for each. Because depending on which one you're using, you have to fight a lot of little enemies or one big enemy. So it kind of gives, I think, a similar feel. For like your hero side, you're also going to get upgrades. In Rift in Time, you're going to get spells, extra spells, which are like your character's special abilities, but they're one-time use abilities that everyone gets to use. So they're fairly powerful, that you can add into the game, but then they go away. And then Elemental instead adds tower mods. You can actually make your towers better. But that's going to depend on the placement of the tower. So a spell is going to be active however, wherever, versus a tower mod can only be on that mod. If you get rid of that tower to upgrade it, you lose that mod. So some differences there. But I think those are, again, kind of opposites of each other. They're sort of equal, but different in each box. They each also have their own special challenges. Rift in Time has the Spider Challenge from the big expansion, Spider Goddess expansion, and Elemental Uprising has the Shade Challenge from the More Than Shadows expansion, which are just extra little things you can add for those scenarios in that expansion. You have to use them for most of them, but then you can also add them to the other scenarios in the game to make them a little bit more difficult or a challenge. And I feel like that's, you know, again, they're very they're different, but they're comparable to each other. Yeah, so those are the big things there. And then obviously, again, like I mentioned before, they have the 2 different endgame things, which is a Portal Storm versus the Rift mode, which, again, work very similar. They let you take all the cards from the base game expansions, mix them together, and play out renewed scenarios. I think Elemental Uprising, though, did a better job of prepping how that works versus Portal Storm, or versus the Portal Storm ones. But you can kind of mix them together a little bit as well. and use some of them cards to help, again, bring the bosses over to the second game as well. Yeah, so that's kind of the little bit differences there, just overall. So we're going to kind of break down and look at some of the stuff compared one-to-one. And I'm not going to sit here and compare every single thing to every single thing. I'm not going to grab every single horde card and be like, oh, this is horde card 1, this is horde card 1 for this game. Because that's not really worth it. I'm not going to pull each boss and show up each boss. But I'm going to try and hit some of the bigger elements of the characters and the game. So that's something to look forward to if you keep watching this. All right, let's jump into it. All right, to start off, one of the first things I did want to bring up for differences in the game, as I did mention before, was like victory conditions. So both of them have the same losing condition, is basically if your kingdom takes too much damage, you lose the game. That's pretty much the same for both of them. So you let too many hordes through, you lose. But the win conditions do change for each one. With Rift in Time, which I'll put over on the left side here, versus Elemental on the right, is they have different reference cards. So Rift in Time does have some for each of the different couple of heroes from the expansions and one from the base game, as well as cards for the bosses, which just generally tell on the backs of them, helper cards, but they're going to tell kind of like what they do and how they activate. Just reminders on how the bosses work. Elemental Uprising has the same idea for that. It's going to have some for different heroes, champion cards, how bosses work. And again, if we look on the back, it's just going to re-mention like how each one kind of works. Different modes that have special steps in there. So that kind of stays the same there. But like one of the big differences is Elemental Uprising, every single scenario you do is going to have like minor, maybe like the beginning of one of each scenario, is you're either going to be defeating a champion. So like here we have, we're going to be defeating one of the champions here. You're going to be working with the hero, one of the other hero characters, to like complete some sort of mission. Champion, hero, boss. Champion, hero, champion, boss. Same thing. Then we even get to the expansions. We have, a boss, a champion. Some are a little bit special ones. This is kind of a unique one. But they're all going to be kind of based on that. So every single hero has a way to be on the board doing something in in Rift in Time. The first one, in Rift, not all of them have it. Just a couple of them. These the expansion ones do. So I really like that as an idea, as you had a way to like have every character not only be playable, but also kind of be like have a mission where they can be a scenario they can be on the board where you have to work with them. Because then it also forces you to like, if you want to play that, I really like Eldrick here, but like now I have to play as somebody else so that he can be on the board trying to complete his special challenge where I'm helping him. And I think that also makes it neat because it forces you, again, to like have to play as a different character. And like, maybe I do like this character instead, this other character, because I had to try someone else. But it's also the same thing. All the bosses have special things, they have challenges. But even on the back of their cards, they're going to tell you what your win is. This is like the very first scenario. And it's just you win if there are no enemies on the map at the end of the 5th round. So you just need to make sure you eliminate everybody by that time. But then we start looking at some of the next ones where we have like a champion. All champions are destroyed and you survive till the end of the round. So you have to take out champions. But then when we have like Eldrick's here, he says defeat all 3 Fire Claws cards and survive till the end of the round. So now it has a special challenge. You're having Elric is here helping you trying to defeat this Fire Claw monster. Versus, the hordes are still going to be coming. You're still going to have to deal with them. Even like the same like the champions, you're still fighting the other hordes. Now there's champions here to give you extra trouble, but then that's your main focus. The hordes are need to be defeated so they don't overwhelm the kingdom and you lose that way. But you have another mission to focus on. Again, we'll have champions, But now we have another one with the hero. It says remove all 3 murky pawns, survive till the end of the round. Defeat the boss. Very simple ones. Like here, perform 3 rituals with Bruxa. Get into some of the expansions. We're just gonna have the same thing. Help Regicide Sway Twilight Brutes. Use Razor Beast to destroy other enemies. So you have to actually use an enemy card, and you have to help them get around. I did mention there was the sheep one, if I can find it. Of course, now that I'm looking for it, you can't find it, right? So that always works. Yeah, help Raz and Rags escort the sheep horde to the exit. We're gonna have this one special. Have 6 gold and 10 sheep herds and to pay the gnomes. So you have to collect different stuff. Or escort the sheep off the map. So it gives different things versus just defeating the enemies. So, and that's what I also want to bring up on the Rift one, is we have these portal cards. So this is the main challenge in that. So like when you're not trying to defeat all the extra hordes, your goal is to defeat these portal cards. Now they're going to be listed 2, 4, 6, 8, and 9 for the scenarios, because certain ones don't use any. I might be missing a couple in there. But like the boss ones, I don't think have them. So you're fighting a boss, you're just fighting the boss. But then the other ones are all going to have these for what scenario they belong to. And they'll have different numbers and where to shuffle them. But what they do is, so if we flip them over, they're going to have these special symbols in there. So you're going to show a tower number. So it's going to match that little symbol on your tower. And then it's going to show a bunch of enemies on there. This one's not super terrible, but we have an enemy that can't take magic. We have a healing enemy, and we have a wolf that has speed. So it's going to move quicker. But to beat the game, you have to defeat these portal tiles. Which I'm like, in general, that's not really a bad idea. It's like, works the same as a champion or that fire claw like I mentioned. It gives you a goal to do other than just trying to defeat a massive number of hordes. It's surviving more and more enemies coming. It gives you an extra challenge. What I personally don't like as much about this is the mechanic behind it. Now, I don't know, I haven't tried playing without this mechanic, because again, it's not part of the game, but maybe it might just be what you have to do to make the game more entertainment or enjoyable, is because what the little symbol in the middle, so if I look at some of these other ones, we have a level 2 there, you get some tools. There's a lot of guys on some of these, so a lot of them are 1s and 2s, but we can get up to like level 3s for some of them. And I mean, you get some of the later ones, like Scenario 9, there's a lot of guys, its entire board is filled. And what makes, and like we have this one, so there's a flying horde, so they're going to go over guy. This one has magical and physical defense, it's level 4. So again, why, in general, you'd be like, well, why does that matter? What does that number mean? What it means is that only towers of that level can attack it. Which, right there, again, not necessarily a bad thing. It kind of makes you have to like focus on upgrading your towers than just being like, you know what, we've been able to handle this with level 2 towers. Why would I upgrade anymore? It's gonna make you have to spend that time upgrading, which means when you're passing an upgrade, you don't get to play one that turn. So that kind of becomes that thing of like, hey, I can probably win with just level 2 towers, but to be able to beat, let's see, where's this level 3 one at we had? So to be able to beat this level 3, I have to upgrade to level 3 towers, which means that you have to spend time upgrading towers, but you can't just have everyone upgrade a tower on the same turn, because then you don't have any towers to use. So you kind of have to play and work as a team. That in itself, I think, is a fun challenge. I don't have an issue with that either. My issue with the mechanic is, it says once a tower does any amount of damage, it puts 1 damage tile on here. That tower is removed from the game. You put it back in the box. So this means if I'm shooting a level 3 tower at this, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 spots in there. My level 3 tower is not going to do 9 damage. And that's what I didn't like about this as a mechanic, because then I spent all this time upgrading to a level 3 tower, and as soon as I attack with it, I'm going to lose it. And then now I have to, not only do I still have to beat this to win the game, I have to also rebuild up more towers. So if we look at like a level 3 tower here, just to kind of get an idea of how much damage it can do. Like we have a sharpshooter tower in this game at level 3, right? It does 3 damage tiles. So I've had to level this up 2 times. I'm going to cover up 3 spots on there. So that's, if I'm just using sharpshooter towers, it's going to be 1 tower, 2 towers, 3 towers. I'm going to have to spend 4 towers on there. And then the fact is also, heroes can't do damage to it. So I can't even use my hero abilities on it. And I can't put heroes on top of it. So that makes it even harder, because now I can only use my towers, and then I lose them. And now, if I shot this tower out, and, you know, let's say for whatever reason, let's look at a better example of this. Do I have like this? So like right here, I have my howitzer, which this does 1 damage forward and 2 damage to the sides, right? So if this shoots forward, puts a 3 tile on there, great, I put 3 damage on there. I lose it, even though the other ones are going to go the other direction. So yeah, if you put 1 point on there, you automatically lose it. So that's one thing I really did not like about this portal mechanic, because you have to spend time upgrading your towers. You can buy some level 2s and start from there, but then you're going to lose them as soon as you do 1 point of damage. And it still is, you have to deal with everything else. Now again, if these work like a boss, or this is like the last card that came out in the middle of a scenario, that might not even be too bad either. Like, hey, this is the final thing. Like, if I've stopped everything else, I have to stop this, but I have to start sacrificing my towers to do it. So I've had to, like, been playing strategically all the time. Again, might not be terrible. But even right here, so this is the first scenario of the game. You have 2 of them you have to fight. You have a level 2, you have a 2 and a 1 there. So you have 2 different ones in there. So it's not like I just have to beat 1. It's going to be showing that after, like, 4 turns, I'm going to have to fight 1 of them. And I get 3 more turns, I have to fight a second one. And I still have to fight 2 more hordes after that. So yeah, I guess that's what I really didn't like about that. You get some of these later ones that have 3, like this, like scenario 8, you have to go against 4 of them. You know, all 4 of them in scenario 8. And it looks like the top of the stack is 1. So immediately on spawn point 1, you start with 1. When you get to spawn point 5 and 4 and 5, it's the first card on there. They're not the last cards. They're the first things you fight. So that's I guess that's my biggest point between the 2 of them. Is why I would say why I like Elemental Rising better, is because I don't like these portal cards in here. Again, I think you could adjust the rules if you wanted to, and just been like, okay, heroes can do damage to them as well. You know, and maybe even just like only towers of that level can attack it. So this thing has a shield saying level 1 and 2 cards can attack it, only level 3s. Still forces me to have to upgrade my tower, but I don't have to worry about losing it. And it still, I think, makes it an interesting challenge. But that was my big difference in there. So then, alright, so that's the big difference in the scenarios. I just wanted to kind of get that one out of the way, because that's the thing that kind of drove me a little bit nuts. The next thing I do want to look at are the towers themselves. So I'm going to grab some of them, and I want to look at them for one big reason, is because it's another big distinction between the 2 different games. So yeah, you can see on the Rift side, we have just the Mage Tower. On Elemental, we have the Mage Guild. So the towers are going to differentiate between each game. They're not the exact same towers, which I am 100% okay with. That definitely makes, I'm fine with that. And then what you're going to see on there, though, is we have, this one has a little portal book on there for the mods. I would say that if you're using the other towers and you want to somehow create some sort of system to add the golden to buy the mods, I don't see why you couldn't add them into the game, into the Rift game. It's just, it might make them a little bit too, it might make them too powerful for the scenarios, but I'm not for sure on that. But no, what the one big difference is so in Rift, you are not allowed to freely rotate any tiles. Versus Elemental, you can. Every tile is freely rotatable. So what do I mean by that? So if you look at the level 3 wizard tower, it has this little rotating circle-y icon. So what this means, if I play the Z shape, I can play it in any direction. But what it's saying here is if I play this L shape on this one, if my tower's shooting forward, that L shape has to be that direction. So yeah, that's, I don't want to say problematic. It's one thing I didn't, when you played the first game, you're like, okay, I guess that makes sense. It makes it into a challenge. So what it's saying here is if I shot this one forward onto here, I can only place this tile like this. So if I'm shooting this tile, you know, I can't place it like that. So, like, I can only cover up one spot there. If I place it there, that's going to make it hard to defeat that guy. I could put it there, but I'm wasting. So, the only spot for me to realistically put this on here to cover up the most amount of enemies, or all three, would be right here. But he has magical resistance, so I can't even do that. So, I'm either going to cover up those two, those two, those two. I can cover up those two, or I can cover up that one, or that one, or that one, or that one, maybe those two. Like, you have a lot less options. Versus, if I was playing this with Elemental, everything's freely rotatable. So now I can turn it this way, cover up those three, or I could cover up these three. So you can see how it's a little bit more powerful of a mechanic. And this includes all of the heroes and everybody else. So what it does, though, is it does add, for the towers, adds a little bit more of a challenge for Rift. Because now you really have to be paying attention to where you place your towers and what direction. If I can only shoot forward and I can only place it that way, I really have to be paying attention to what enemy is going to be in front of me and if I'm going to have a spot there. Whereas if I can freely rotate it, I have a lot more option on how I put it in there. But yeah, so that's just a little bit of a difference there for what it has. Now, there is, like, as you upgrade your towers, you can get more things that are free rotating. I think most of the hero abilities in Rift have the ability to do free rotating, but not all of them. Some of them are going to depend on which way your hero is facing. So it does make a little bit of a difference. I'm just going to do a quick comparison to all the different towers quick. So we have level 2 and level 2, so now they actually change. Now, this one you could argue which one's better, right? It's hard to say. You have a Z shape that can go in one of three directions, or you have a square. Still covering 4 spaces, but it only goes one spot. But again, that sticker's going to make a big difference there. And then for level 3s, we have one. So now this actually becomes, in my opinion, infinitely worse. It's a Z shape that's fully rotatable versus 4 that I can put in any direction anyhow. So I can literally remake that shape in anywhere, or I can spread it out. I'm not going to really look at the level 4s right now, because there's a bunch of them, and they're all pretty special on what they do. We'll maybe compare those at the end. We'll just show them off now. In Rift, by the time you buy all of them, you actually get 4 different towers. So you get this one, so lets you actually shoot arrows that do magical damage. This one lets you freely rotate some triples, a Z, and a single shape. Plus you get a soldier, or you get a couple different magical ones. Versus Elemental, we are going to get 3 singles and 1 double that can go anywhere, no matter what, or this one, which is going to put 1 soldier and 1 one single tile in every square around it, with true damage. So there's definitely some big differences there. Let's look at our archer towers quick. Level 1 to level 1. So again, here we're going to have some different... They did change the artwork on these a little bit more. But you have a double shot that can go any direction or a double shot in any direction. So they're the exact same, except again, you cannot freely rotate this. This has to be up and down, where this one can go up and down or left and right. But you also have the option of shooting 1 arrow anywhere. It does make a difference. Our level 2s, so an L shape, freely rotatable, or a long one, freely rotatable, or a double one anywhere. Now there I could say you could kind of argue. Again, you get that point of like, which one's better than this one? So our sharpshooter one, 3 single tiles. Obviously, this one's a lot better. This one does shoot up to 2 spaces forward. Gets you a little bit better range, but this is going to shoot 2 anywhere versus 3 only up to 2 spaces forward. Or double ones, you kind of see where they're definitely a lot better. And our level 4s, as we have L shape with some splash damage. Some perfect range shooting anywhere for golden longbows with some different shapes there. Our ranger one, which would give us true damage, bunch of singles but a bunch of different directions. And then the musketeer one, or musketeer, lets you shoot 4 in any direction. So alternatively, we have the crossbow, which this one actually gives us 2 special bird raven mods to let you do some extra stuff, or it gets you 2 of them. So it's like, yeah, you get 2, but you also get these 2 ravens that let you do damage elsewhere. Or you get this one that you do 2 doubles or 2 singles, but you also get a totem, which stops magical stuff from happening. So some differences in there as well. If we look at our bombardier, so this one, I think this one difference is a little bit more. So 1 forward or 1 to the left or right. Versus this one's going to shoot 1 tile, but it's going to go in all 3 directions. So it's already doing 1 more tile of damage than the other one. Than the rift. And then the artillery, we're going to get kind of the same. This one, again, can maybe be a little bit, so a double every direction, or a double forward and a single on each side. So obviously, again, the elemental one's going to be a lot better. You can't even argue with it. The howitzer, so a double in every direction, or a triple, a double, and a double. So if you're only getting to go those 3 directions, this one's some extent going to be better because you're going to get a triple versus just a double, but this could also hit in more directions. Also, this triple here, though, is not rotatable. So it does make a difference as well. And our level 4s, which we have the Weirdwood, which lets you play a square with a splash for another square. This lets you play some soldiers, and triple rotatable with a double rotatable splash. Some range in different directions, some triples, some doubles with Tesla. And then the Big Bertha, which gets you a bunch of triple rotatables. Versus the other ones, which would get you a triple with a splash of double everywhere around it. Or every direction you get a double, and then 1 direction you get another double. So yeah, it kind of interesting. Then the last ones we have we're just going to look at are the militia, which are your soldiers. Blonde-haired versus dark-haired guys. Interesting. They're still going to have the build sites on there, so you can build something on top of them. But arguably, the elemental one here is justifiably better because you get a player soldier, plus you get a splash damage, a spear to the next spot. Same thing here. This is just footmen are justifiably going to be better. 1, you just send 2 one direction, or 2 up to one of the 3 directions, plus one of them gets a splash damage spear. The knights, 3, one of the 3 directions. 2, so you get 1 less soldier, but they can go any direction, and you get an extra splash damage. So this you're at most going to get 3 damage on the board. This will get you 4 in more directions. And then for our level 4s, we have Barbarian Hall, which gets you a lot of soldiers and some bombs. The Forest Keepers, which gets you some soldiers, is splash damage of arrows. Soldiers plus arrows. And 4 soldiers. Whereas our level 4 on this side gets you 2 soldiers and 2 damage. So again, 4. Kind of, because this can all be on the same tile, where this has to be different tiles. So that does make a difference as well. But it also heals everybody. And then the Assassin's Guild, which lets you put them in any direction as well. But this has a double build site on it. So there are some various differences there. Yeah, so the overall, again, I think the Elemental Uprising ones have better towers. Part of it's because they have freely rotatable no matter what. Some of them, just in general, because of that, have better abilities. They have the extra splash, the extra big damages like that. So again, we're leaning more towards Elemental Uprising being better. Not to say, hey, there's no reason not to get this. If you want to have mix both games, be able to pick towers from any one, it's definitely doable. Because so sometimes it might be worth having this or that. And again, if you switch up Rift to follow the newer rules with everything's rotatable, it's gonna make some of them actually pretty decent as well. Alright, so let's hop into another thing that's a little bit different. Alright, so the next thing I want to kind of go over in here are some of the upgrades that you can get to kind of make the game a little bit different. I mentioned this before, is Rift has spells. You get special spells, which can be noted by these little symbols. Some have 1, some have 2, just for various levels. And they're kind of like one-time use abilities that your characters get to use throughout the game. You get the scenario tell you how many you get to pick from. So sometimes you get 1, sometimes you get 2. But they give you extra optional effects. Versus Elemental Rift has mods for your towers, which work very differently. You purchase them, so you have to defeat enemies to gain coins, but that's the difference between, do you gain coins to buy new mods and make your current towers better, or do you get crystals to make your to buy new towers? So they have to differentiate what you want, because then every time you upgrade a tower, you don't have the mods don't transfer to the new upgrade. So it's kind of like a risk-rewardy type thing. So I don't inherently think one is worse or better than the other. And I obviously could see, like, if you did combine the games, you could use both at the same time. And I think you'd have to kind of play around a bit if you were going to use the mods on the original Rift game. Again, the cards, none of the monsters say what coins they have, but it's fairly easy to figure out. So if I grab a stack of Horde cards here, which that was not the Horde stack. I got my foot stuck. So yeah, like we looked at the Hordes, all the green cards have coins. The yellow cards, or medium cards, have a coin or a crystal, and all the red ones just have crystals. So you can apply that exact same logic to the other game. But then it's also going to be the difference between, if you're playing Rift, every time you're earning stuff, you're just gaining crystals. So you're gaining a lot more crystals to upgrade your towers a lot quicker. Again, that's so that you can beat them portals. In this game, since you don't have to deal with that element of losing them and having to upgrade as often and buy as many towers, you can kind of play some upgrades and be more comfortable with which ones you have. So I think it gives you a little bit more leeway. I'm gonna we're gonna do a quick run through on some of these spells that we have. So we have Thunderbolt here, which has True Aim. And as you're looking now, here's one thing I did think was a little bit of a bummer for this, is they have these special symbols on there, like you're showing people being electrocuted. So you put a double one on there, but these tiles do not exist in the game. I might personally at some point make some up for myself. I haven't yet, but yeah, it's kind of a bummer that they didn't have these available as extra tiles to go with this. You just have to use another two set of tiles. We have Lightning Bolt, which does 4 lightning damage, must be placed. These damage tiles must be placed so they're next to each other. So they can go in like a Z shape, an L shape, however you want. They just have to be next to each other. Some of these are for the base game, some are for the expansions. Gem of Time Warp lets you spend a double rotating anywhere. One hero loses health. This must target a portal. So this one ends up being a little bit different for that sake. Teleport Scroll. Use when hordes spawn. Place this on a spawn stack. Skip its phase to spawn new hordes. Remove this tile and spawns 2 hordes the next time. So, okay. Ring of Fire lets you just place some fire tiles. Pile of Gold. Return 1 level tower to the supply. The team gains 1 level 2 tower. Any other level 2. Horn of Heroism. One hero heals up to 2 hearts. One hero recovers up to 2 abilities. These can be different heroes. Dynamite. Place this on a single spawn stack. Put 3 damage on the first horde that spawned from it. We have Reinforcements. Place 2 soldiers on different hordes. And Hand of Midas. Pass a tower and upgrade it twice when you do. So yeah, so some various different ones that do, some do damage, some put tiles down. They're just kind of like extra, like, hey, I really just need 2 extra points of damage, or I need this. They just give you that extra little boost. So they're definitely not bad to have. Versus, we have this sticker book for this game, which is going to let us play all of these different mods on our towers. So they actually peel off, stick onto the towers, and you can stick them into your book to keep track of them. They come with 2 sets, so you don't have to use all of them right away. But then they add different effects to each tower. And then some are available right off the bat. Some have to be available in later scenarios, and if you're playing the Rift mode, you can put all of them in. It gives your tower perfect range. You can hit anything. Lets you become an extra build site. Does true damage. Lets you place a soldier down. Lets you place 1 damage anywhere. Lets you place a double damage in 1 spot. So those are the basic 6. Then the next 3 all kind of involve some of the other elements of the game. When you upgrade this tower, you get a rest on your characters, which refreshes their health and their abilities. You upgrade your tower, you get 2 gems and a coin, so it lets you buy more stuff. This will let you refresh your blooms, which we haven't looked at in this, but this is another extra thing that they have that kind of ties in with this. There's board mechanics that let you do extra different stuff. And then this one says when you place the tile, you can pay 1 gem to pick the tower back up and place it again somewhere else. And then these 2 ravens, which we saw on the 1 special tower, lets you purchase. Once you place that card, you unlock these 2 mods. Now you can place these falcons on other towers that let you do 1 point of damage somewhere else on the board. And then there's also some for the expansions, which we have. These 4 up here let you do damage to shade characters, which are part of the special challenge. Or you can put a Ring of Fire, which is unlocked, which makes the tower now do true damage and deals 1 extra horde or fireball damage. Or finally, we have one that lets you place gnomes down, special gnome cards in 1 direction, which lets you place a special extra thing. And then the last 2 we have they're technically mods, but they didn't make them into stickers. They made them into brand new towers. Are Young Bressid and Young Ashbite. So Young Bressid lets you basically, this goes into your mod supply. You can purchase it. And once you purchase it, it now becomes a permanent tower on the board that does 1 damage to every space around it. There's a little blast icon. So you shoot a fireball, you hit a spot, and you do basically damage to everywhere in that spot. All the tiles around it, hordes around it. Or Young Ashby actually has a miniature that then goes on the board. And then he gets to fly around and work kind of like a soldier. So it's kind of neat they added some extra different ones there that work like that. But again, these mods, you have to be playing far enough in the game to have them unlocked. But even if you have them all ready to go, you're playing a game where you have to defeat enough hordes to purchase them. And then you have to put them on their towers, look the stickers. And again, you upgrade them. Now you don't have access to that. Now someone else could later on repurchase that tower, and then you have access to it again. So it's kind of like spending your money for a temporary buff. Versus, again, the spells, which do just big, like one big giant buff. Then, what we wanted to look at were our Blossom cards, which I don't know where those went. Then in Elemental Uprising, the other little extra thing we get are some of these tiles. There's 5 different ones. There's Magic, Frost, Fire, Earth, and a Storm one. And then each one has a double side, so there's regular and withered. These get placed on the board in various scenarios. The scenario will tell you where to place them, and then they do special effects. So I'm not going to spend too much time on each one of these, but we have like Magical Blossom. So when a hero crosses over them or stops on them, they can activate them. And so like when this triggers, you get to put extra damage tiles on. So they work kind of like little miniature towers. They have like maybe a one-time activation. There are ways to unwither them to have them rebloom, and you can use them again. But again, they kind of take place in sort of like the spells because they're on the board. But again, you have to be at a specific spot to do this. So I have to walk over to this tile, move my character maybe away from sitting on a tile doing damage to that tile, or being ranged or shooting a tile to run over and do this. But it lets me put 2 extra tiles down. The Storm one lets you put a double tile on, and it also scares other miniatures off the path. The Fire one does 1 fire damage, but it does each one adjacent to it, so depending on what you activate it, when something's maybe next to it, does more damage. The Earth one gains a protection, which lets you prevent you from taking damage. The Frost one will actually put a Frost token on a horde, and then put a totem on, which gets rid of some of the magical symbols, which is really cool as well. So yeah, so those are kind of extra little things they have in there. So now, these ones I would more or less say you could almost go either way, because the blossoms are tied to the scenarios. They're going to tell you where to put them. Now again, if you make your own custom game, you can obviously put them anywhere. And in the mods, again, it's like you have to spend some to get them, versus the spells, you just start the game with them. They're one-time use, they go away. So mods are reusable, either if you have them or you can keep using them, or active effects, versus spells are pretty decent, but they're one-time only. But you don't have to purchase or upgrade, especially when you start defeating that yellow one, where you defeat the yellow guy. Then you have to decide, okay, do I buy gold, or do I upgrade a mod, buy a mod, or do I get crystal for buying a new tower? Plus, then all the green guys no longer have crystals, so beating all the weak guys won't get you towers easily. So you have to upgrade by passing your earlier towers. And then later in the game, you can start purchasing the smaller ones, with the crystals you're going to gain. So it gives you a little back and forth on either one of those. Again, I don't think one is necessarily better than the other for that thing. Alright, so that means we've covered the portals, we've covered the towers, we've covered the special abilities. I'm not going to go through each individual character. I don't think that's really... If you like to see comparison, you like to see all, 10, 12 characters, how everything is, you like to see them all, I can always do a separate video for that. Just let me know if that's something you'd be interested in, just as a comparison between all the different characters. I'm not going to spend a lot of time looking at the boards, but I do want to show off the in Elemental Rift. They're kind of like jungly themed, but down the back side they also have a cave, which is kind of a cavern, and we have water tiles. So you have a special brand new water tile, whereas in Rift, they're all just kind of like grassy plains with the tiles. But the other thing is, I think there's a lot more tiles on here, like blank spaces, so different paths. So I think you get more paths that they can go on in Rift versus Rising. They have a lot more strict placement part because they have more things that have to be on the board with the blossoms and different enemies that might appear off the board and things like that. So up next, the next thing I do want to look at is some of the different special tiles and special hordes that there are. So we're going to take a look at those. Just give me a second to prep them. Alright, so this part of the video, I'm going to try and go through all the different types of extra cards and stuff, like horde-sized cards. And I'm going to try and compare them about as close as I possibly can for like what each one kind of offers. So we're going to start with the mini-boss / champions. So Rift here has Cerberus, which are going to have these special Cerberus spawn cards. So when they pop up, they could have one of two symbols on them. So you're either going to get one or you won't. But you'll spawn one. And then we have a couple of minions here that also help spawn them as well when you defeat them. But then if you do spawn one, you summon Cerberus. You have to fight him. He's kind of a little mini-boss. He's definitely going to be hard. He has a couple of symbols on there. You can't put heroes or soldiers on him. He can move twice with speed, and he has aim. He also does damage to heroes every turn. So it's kind of like the only like straight up, for sure, mini-ish boss that came in Rift. And then they kind of took that idea and they turn it in Elemental. They turn it into the champions. So the champions are usually going to have several different cards. So if we flip this guy over, he's going to have, again, a big giant box, same size. He just has armor. But what he has are these skulls around him. And what the skulls do is they trigger the champion deck. So you'll have a champion deck, where there's a third card too. So you don't know which one you're going to get. So you have different options on which one you might get, which, again, as it ranks. But when a champion is out, every turn you'll draw one of their cards. It says if the champion has less than one skull, or at least one skull, it performs a special attack. And there's ones that do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you want to, not only do you want to defeat the champion, you also want to cover up these other spots so that he doesn't do a special attack. And each one has a different attack. One guy will do, I have to grab the reference cards, but one guy just does some extra damage to guys around him. Some of them spawn extra cards or do get rid of towers around them. They do various different things depending on which one. And we have a couple different ones. We have Jack-o'-lantern here, which actually he has his C2, but then he also has special summons. He summons ghouls when he moves. We have our, I can't remember all these guys' names. We have Anubis, our Barlog type guy. So yeah, we get some. So they don't have as many icons as like the Cerberus does. They're mostly just armored, which means armored definitely sucks too, because you can't place two of the same damage tiles on there. But they have their special skills. So I think those two are kind of comparative. The other thing I think that kind of goes with this for Rift is we have special summoners. So we'll have certain tiles here. They'll have a little summoner on. This is a Saurian summoner. And you'll have a little summon icon. And when you summon them, you grab one of the cards from one of the decks here. And this is actually one of them as well. And you summon him. So he'll keep summoning more and more. And they, like that one will have another one. Some of these don't have summoners. Some have bigger guys. so you don't know which one you're going to get. But them in themselves aren't really like a mini-boss, but when that first Horde card comes out, if you don't defeat that summoner or all the summoners on that Horde card, they're going to draw one of these guys, or they're going to come out. So now I'm fighting 2 cards. And then the next turn, I might be fighting a extra third card. And plus they go in front of them, so then the other guy then jumps over, so they get even farther. If there's no spaces, they can end up summoning these guys like 2 or 3 spots down the line as well. And then that guy will then jump even farther. So, yeah, I feel like they kind of work mini-bosses, because instead of being like a big guy that you have to deal with 9 squares, it's going to be you have to deal with this special mage, or he's going to keep bringing more and more pain into you. Then we have another one that's another type of summoner. I forgot what his exact... Ah, crap, my camera. Alright, sorry about that. Technical difficulties. But yeah, we have another summoner that's doing the same thing. He's going to summon mummies in. Yeah, maybe not as bad as the Sauron ones, but the fact that they summon more guys in, I feel like they kind of play as sort of like a mini boss in that sense. And then the third type we have that is similar to that is we have one that have ghosts on there. So they're actually going to say that put pictures of ghosts on there. And then this is like the Horde tile, so they have all these different monsters on there. But have a little ghost on there. So when this is defeated, you then summon a ghost tile. So this one actually just replaces it instead of summoning a brand new one. But it's going to give you these ghosts, which are a little bit harder to defeat. So again, they're not quite, maybe like the champions have special abilities they'll keep activating while you're trying to defeat them, but they're also going to have that consequences. If you don't get rid of them, they're going to become a headache. Now, Elemental Rift does have sort of a similar guy that plays sort of like that. So we have this Null Catapulter, who has like the champion symbol, but he's not quite a champion. There's level 1s and there's some level 2s here as well. But what he does is when he comes out, level 1 don't have any special guy, level 2 has some extra evokers for healing. He comes out, he actually goes onto one of your towers. And then now he shoots from your tower. So then now you have to change up your strategy, because you have to aim at your tower to take this guy out versus just aiming at the board. Which also can mean if you have a tower that shoots in multiple directions, if you have to also now turn the tower that direction, so it's shooting that way, you might not hit other spaces on the board. But again, you can't lose a tower for a bunch of turns either. So again, not necessarily a mini boss per se or a champion, but he's definitely going to be an issue. So those two, I think those are kind of like the back and forth. Is one better than the other? Is more guys being summoned, which again gives you bigger and bigger hordes, a little bit harder to deal with, versus one bigger guy that's going to be challenging. It can kind of go back and forth either way. They do recommend, though, if when you're playing the portal mode, when you're combining everything, if you're using the summoners, to only have 3 summoners per pile. Because, again, I think they said you start having too many, like you start having 5 or 6 at a time, between, like, the two or 3 different decks, you're going to lose. Because it's just going to be too hard to... You're not going to be able to keep up when they're summoning more and more guys repeatedly. Alright, so the next thing I want to look at is, not necessarily different, but I want to look at some of the different special abilities. So in Elemental Rift, we also, like all the games have, both of them have the guys we saw, like with the yellow on there, which means they can't take physical damage. The blue ones, which can't take magic damage. They have the speed icons we've seen. We've seen the healing icons. The summoner one's a little bit differently. Rift has, exclusive to it, has the bullseye, which lets these guys do, they shoot a hero every turn. So if you don't take them out, you're going to continuously take damage. We've seen the gray before. And on this side, we actually have evasive, which Oh, I already forgot exactly what that does. I believe it just makes them. It makes them harder to hit. I can't remember. Alright, so the evasive there means the little black skull, or black mask face, means they can't be damaged until you put a hero or a soldier on them. And with double move means you put a soldier on them, the soldier's going to die and they're still going to get a move one turn anyhow. Or a hero will take 2 damage. With something like this particular card. There are other ones that have it as well. But that's exclusive to Rift, and that, again, these aren't necessarily one's better than the other, they're just different abilities. The other interesting thing Elemental has as these shamans, which produce shields. Some have 2 green, some have 2 blue, some are on the top, some are on the bottom. But all this just means is you, like, unlike the little squares that have them, you can put damage tiles on any of these guys. You just can't aim them in your tower this direction or that direction. It's on the top, so no physical attacks can come from this way, no magical attacks can come from that way. Yeah, it adds a different element, because now you have to just, you can't just, aim your tower at that tile and attack it. Now you have to be like, I have a really good tower that does physical damage, but I can't hit it from there, and my guy, I can't put my tower on the other side, so I can't actually target this. So it makes that sort of interesting as well. And then a very unique thing that Rift has are these breaker icons down here. So when these guys come in, there will be special board-sized tiles here for a pond, a forest, and a village, and they're double-sided. You can see they're kind of cracked down there. So these guys actually block the path. And when you play one of these cards, depending on, I don't have more than one out, but depending on which order you go from left to right, you destroy this. So first time these guys appear, I destroy this, and then now that opens up a new spawn point. And then you destroy the forest, and then the third time you destroy the lake. It's a neat idea too, because you're already trying to worry about hordes and hordes of guys coming, so this is going to make it like, if I don't defeat these guys as soon as possible, they're going to start breaking open more paths, releasing more spawn points. So, like the summoners, they're going to have more and more guys, except this time, it's adding another entire row of guys instead of just one extra tile. So that's definitely going to make that very interesting there. So the last type of, like, couple extra little tiles we have in here for Elemental Rift is we have, I mentioned before, we have our sheep tiles. So I kind of mentioned these earlier. They're just little sheep, double-sided. You have each one has a different orientation. But yeah, they're trying to escape just one of the extra little mechanics. It's kind of cool, like a friendly thing that's on the board that you have to defend as opposed to something you have to attack. So it makes it an escort mission, which most people like escort missions, boo. But I think it at least makes an interesting concept for the game. And then the other ones, we have these special gnome, which go with that one mod we saw, which then now you actually play these with the mod, and it gives special extra mod abilities. I'm not going to go through them too much. The other extra thing they have in here are, for Elemental Rift, Elemental Uprising, we have events. So these will be placed throughout the game. Each scenario will list certain times you might draw one of these events. If you draw event A, it's just going to say check the rulebook, and it'll tell you what event happens in that scenario when you draw that event. Just adds an extra little, like, element to the game that's not just a regular thing. You might draw A, and it might be like, it could be something as simple as like, hey, draw another horde tile. Oh, great, that sucks. But it also could be like, each player gets a piece of gold, or gets a crystal, or refresh your heroes. Could be anything. A bunch of different stuff. So it just adds a little bit of extra element there. Then I want to look at some challenges which we have, which I think are kind of cool. So we have the Spider Challenge and the Shade Challenge. So each one is going to add some really interesting modes to the game. So in Rift, we have the Spider Challenge, all these spider cards. Various points in the game, what you'll do is you will draw the top card, you will flip it over, it will show a enemy on there. Then we have, now I wish these were better tiles, but they're just kind of little cutouts, as opposed to like polyominoes, which I think would have been better. But I think maybe they were worried that, I think the idea is if they put the thicker tiles on there and then you have to put damage tiles on there, they'd slide off, which would defeat the whole purpose of having the little ridges on their tile spots. But yeah, so you go is you'll look for this particular spider here, and then what you will do is, if I am playing this card, when it goes, this horde moves, if there is a 2-spot open, I add this guy to the tile. Now I have to deal with 2 spiders. If for some reason, like if these 2 spots are covered up, there's nowhere else for this guy to go, then hey, I defeated the spider summoning for that turn. But now if you get a card like this one, where there's a lot more open spots for me to put them in, and you're not generally trying to cover up blank spots, you're just trying to cover up the heroes, or the hordes, so this guy more opportunity to spawn. And that actually makes that pretty interesting. So that way, you start at the beginning of the turn, you just see what's coming, and then so you have an idea of like, okay, this horde's gonna get that, so then it gets you in your brain. Can I afford to just let that guy drop on there, or do I have to spend time covering up empty tiles to block him? So it makes you kind of like sacrifice your turn a little bit. And granted, giving a guy speed is not good, but you could get like some with resistances, one guy with speed, but yeah, different shapes. And this is one of the things that's also weird, because a lot of these all say freely rotatable, so it's weird that they didn't have everything that way. But yeah, it's just a bunch of these different spiders of different sizes, shapes. Yeah, you get a bunch of different tiles. You can flip them over, rotate them. Yeah, really, it's an interesting extra mechanic. And again, I could see you adding this into Elemental Rift without too much of an issue. You just place it, basically just going to make the tiles harder. That's the whole point of it, right? It's going to make your hordes harder to defeat. Alternatively, in Elemental Rift, we have the Shade expansion, which will let you summon these little shades. You get 4 of them. In the one expansion, you have to use using every mode, otherwise you're allowed to add them freely to any other game. Then what you do during your turn is you will summon one of these guys, and they will tell you where they move. So they'll move 1 space left, 1 space up, a couple different directions, or it'll say they don't move this round. So all this does is it moves around, which doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But the thing is with these guys is when they're out, I don't know if he'll hang out up there or not, he will. So when they're out on the board, they have a couple of special effects, which is what makes them harder to deal with. I'm going to actually read some of them just so we know. So their effects are, players cannot purchase or upgrade from a tower a shade elemental is on. So this guy moves around the board, but he has a round base. So if he lands on a horde, he doesn't do damage, doesn't cover up tiles to do damage to them. But if he's on a tower, you can't purchase or upgrade a tower's on. The blossoms he lands on immediately withered, so he gets rid of those special abilities. Hordes jump over him if he's on an empty path. So if he moves on to an empty path, hordes will jump over, advance quicker. If he anchors a space with a horde, he deals a point of damage to it. A horde space with a shade cannot be attacked until the shade is removed, though. So he does damage to it, but he can't be removed. How do you remove them from a space? I'll get that in just a sec. So Shade Element on a horde moves along the path. Once it lands with a horde, it'll stay at that horde until a card tells it to move somewhere else. Players cannot place towers on building sites that the Shade Elemental is on, and towers that have Shade Elementals are not picked up during your turn. So if he lands on a tower, you can't upgrade it, or if it gets put into the box, actually, like for some reason, some effects from because he also works as one of the bosses. If it gets put into a tower in your tower tray, you can't purchase or upgrade that tower anymore. And there's no way to get rid of that guy. So basically now you have to work around that. If it gets on the board and lands on a tower, you can't pick that tower up. So you don't get to reuse it next turn. Until he either moves or you get rid of him. You also, if he lands on a build site, you can't build there. So it definitely messes with that. how you get rid of him is you have to move to a location when he's there. So if a shade moves to a location with the hero has to retreat somewhere else. But if a hero moves where the shade is, then the shade has to retreat. But again, this might make you have to, like, I really want to, like, oh, he landed on one of my towers, right? Or he landed on this horde. I can't deal damage to that until I move there. So now you have to, again, kind of like the spiders, you have to spend a turn dealing with this guy rather than doing what you would rather be doing with your character. So it's going to make that just a little bit more difficult. Is one of these harder than the other? I would say the spider generally could be harder because it could add extra space, or you could be like, I only need to do 2 more damage to this guy, unless one of these guys pops in, adds more damage you have to do to it. Plus, it could be a specific shape that now you can't do. Now I have to find a spot that has specifically, 2 damage tiles, because it's up in the top corner, like, right? That one landed up here, now I have to definitely do only 2 damage in that corner, so if I can only produce L shapes, I might be out of luck. The shades, the only reason I think they're going to be definitely a little bit trickier is messing with the towers, is the fact they can go off the board and do stuff like that and get in the way. So that's kind of 2 different challenges they have. Alright, so then, now we've looked at a lot of stuff. The Elemental Rift seems to have a lot more different stuff than, Elemental Uprising has a lot more stuff than Rift. But Rift also has some extra cool stuff as well that we definitely want to look at here. So we have these right here. These are webs. So some of the scenarios will involve having webs. If you get one of these, they flip over and they show you what towers they block. So like this will block the level 3 Knight Tower, Mage Tower level 1, Marksman level 2, or Howitzer level 3. And what you do is you actually put this transparent webbing on the tower in your tower supply, and now you can't purchase or use that tower. So kind of like that the shade does, is it works the same way, except there are ways to get rid of it, but it's you can pay the cost to get rid of the web, or if you upgrade you can get rid of them. But they have to spend extra coin or gold, crystals, be the correct term, to get rid of them. So that's kind of a little bit interesting thing there. It's a way to block some of them towers. The other interesting transparent tiles that we got are portals. So we actually get a purple one and a red one. So how these work on the board is for Elemental Rift, I keep saying this wrong, for Rift in Time, Elemental Rift just sounds correct, but for Rift in Time, is these will be on the board in the scenarios, and like one is the entrance and one's the exit. So one will be on the actual pathway when anybody, whether it's a horde or a hero, walk into that spot, they're teleported out of the portal, which is wherever it is, whatever direction it shows. So it's going to let a guy spawn on one side of the board and shoot somewhere else. And that's kind of a neat extra mechanic you can do to make your game a little bit different or tricky, because then you could have hordes spawning from one side, and they could be like, oh, well, but if he gets to this thing, let's see, now he's going to come to the other side. Now I have to deal with more guys over there, and then depending on where those guys are on that path, he could pop over there and else he can jump 3 spaces. So that makes it tricky as well. So these are kind of extra neat little things. One other thing I also like about the Rift gig, which we have these fire and ice tokens, which some of the bosses have. And Element has this cloud, which one of the minions summon. So some of the bosses summon these fire and ice tokens, which do different effects. Burning effects, extra damage. Ice tokens freeze your characters and things like that. But I like the fact they have extra big tokens that can go on the board. And then the only one they kind of brought over for Elemental is Blue Cloud, which is specific horde summons, which basically blocks damage and stuff on the other hordes around it. So again, it makes them just a little bit more tricky to deal with. But I did like the fact they have tokens. One does one does the other. Alright, so that is all of those things. So Next thing I want to look at that I also thought was a really cool thing that Rift did was we have good old Lord Blackburn. So he's one of the bosses of the base set. And what I liked about this is one that was cool. So each expansion, small expansion, adds a new boss to fight. So we have I don't remember who they are off the top of my head. It's TJ and Moloch, I believe. So I have a Fire and Ice guy. We saw them tokens for. So we fight Lord Blackburn during the main set. And then they added extra cards for a fire version of him and an ice version. So that way when you're fighting him, so you actually can play this boss in 3 different ways. Which I thought was really cool. So like his regular one, he's going to have his action deck that does special effects. His fire version, he's going to use his fire token to do different things. And then his ice one, he'll have ice that does different things. And I thought that was a really cool way to, like, reutilize the bosses and other things. And that's something I could almost love to see is, like, if they had alternate boss cards or abilities for these characters. Like, hey, here's these bosses. You fought them once. Here's like an upgraded version, like maybe a harder difficulty. Doesn't have to necessarily be a harder difficulty, but be a different version of them. Like they do something different. Like a good other example would be for Elemental would be Leviathan. So if I grab his card here, I can find him. So we have the Leviathan here. This might be something interesting they could do. Like, would have been kind of cool to do. So the Leviathan is actually in his mode. So, I don't know if everyone says here. It says, before you advance either tray, he draws first card of his deck. He does his action deck. He moves 1 space down through the water. So how he wins is he places these tentacles down to do stuff in different areas. But he needs to go is escape this water tile. So you have these water tiles on the board. There's 3 of them. And he's trying to move down, and you're constantly just trying to smash on him to knock him back. And that's kind of a cool little mechanical scenario. But it would also be kind of neat if they had, like, a different, like, version of him. Like, maybe instead of having that, like, again, this could have been something they could have done. This is just me kind of spitballing off of here. But, like, instead of having all these water tiles next to each other, or somewhere else, maybe have 4 different ones around the board you could place in different areas. And then he pops up at different ones. Like, maybe he moves from one to the other, and you don't know which one. You'll be, like, north, south, east, west, or whatever. And then, like, you'll have to, like, draw a card, and it'll tell you which one he popped up in. So then you're trying to defeat this boss that's constantly moving around the board. Which, again, would be kind of a neat, interesting thing. And then maybe, like, wherever he doesn't pop up, his tentacles pop up. So maybe you could try and take out his tentacles instead of letting them do damage to you. But it would make more of a boss fight versus just a regular rush mode where a boss is available. But that could have been something a little bit different they could have done, which would have been also neat as well. Alright, so then 2 other things I think I want to go over, and I think we will be done for this video. I want to talk about solo cards for heroes. So in Rift, we have all these activation cards for our characters that go on their boards. They also have them, in Elemental. They also have those in Rift. I don't have one out, but they're just a picture of the card. It's double-sided. I love that in this one is on the back. It actually has a solo mode card. So it tells you what they do. They each have special abilities for solo mode, which I thought was really fun. So yeah, if you're using them in Element and you want to play them as a solo, have them help you out in solo mode, you get a couple of them to jump in. They have these little cards you just flip over, and it gives you an idea of what they do. But then what they did though is kind of weird here. So if you want to play these guys in Rift in Time, so Elemental Heroes in Rift in Time, they have different versions they do. They do different special effects. They just kind of do extra damage. Because what the heroes in the solo mode heroes do for Elemental, or for a Rift in Time, is, let's see if I can grab the book here and actually tell me what they do. Is they just do basically their regular attacks. Let's see if it mentions solo mode here. Yeah. Since in solo mode, you may play as one of your heroes referred to as your main hero. Beside your hero, prepare a bench of up to 3. Each hero may enter play for a single round and is then removed from the game. So that's the same effect as these other guys. So both of them work the same way. During this round, you may activate the bench hero in addition to your main hero. Place a miniature anywhere you want and perform the hero's basic attack. At the end of the round, remove the bench hero from the game. Not be able to call them again. So what they do is they just come in and they do whatever their base attack is. And that's kind of what this is showing here, and I think why they put it on a special card. It's kind of saying this is what their basic attack, or roughly what their basic attack would be doing. They might have adjusted it a little bit. But I do like the fact that we have special solo cards. This would again be something I would love if they made. I would love to have these type of unique, not just their regular base attack solo cards for every character in both games. But I also wouldn't even mind that if you're going to have the other one where they just do their basic attack, just to have another card. Just have one card here that's like extra solo card for each one. Because that way all this information here would be really cool just to have on one of those cards. Because then you could be like, oh, I'm going to play this and that. I have basically two solo cards. Basic attack or special attack. It would give you some alternate different options to do. Because, like, which one would you rather play as? Would you rather have Elric here move 2 spaces, place 2 Sand Warriors, who may move to 2 spaces, and have protection and remain in the game? So you get 2 extra little soldiers that can move around. Or you have him hopping in, he does a melee attack with 2 damage and 2 extra damage tiles. So again, it's kind of that interesting thing. Like, here's another one that's very interesting for Samium. He does moves 8, you put a damage tile for each horde that Sakim moves onto, so you get 8 different damage tiles, essentially. Versus his regular, he moves 5 spaces, placing one for each horde he moves into. He can't move to the same horde twice. So a little bit weaker, but, that's kind of the difference there. They have more of a dedicated, they focus a little bit more on the solo mode than just being, oh, they just get jump in, do their regular attack, and leave. Now they get extra special fancy attacks, which I thought were really cool. Alright, then the last thing I want to look over is the 2 different modes. So we'll take a look at these. So then what we're going to look at is we have, for Rift in Time, we have the Portal Storm. And then for Elemental Uprising, we have the Rift, is it the Elemental Rift, the Rift, I keep forgetting what this is called, and that's why I hate this, it's such a dumb name for this, the Elemental Rift. So yeah, we have Rift in Time has Portal Storm, Elemental Uprising has the Elemental Rift. They should not put Rift in there, it's kind of confusing. But these are, again, which I've been mentioning throughout the entire video, your end game, like, mix and match. They're going to tell you, like, take X cards from this wave, make this deck, this spawn, put some bosses in there, do this. It's going to kind of be like a way to combine all your sets together. Now, it says in the rules you can take bosses from Rift and put them in Elemental. They'll have the different backs, obviously, but you also are supposed to know roughly, you would kind of roughly know when bosses were going to come up anyhow, so it's not that big of a deal. Now, can you 100% mix and matches? You could try. It does say that you can't go the other direction, though. But some of that might just be because the bosses in Rift will be utilizing, like, the blossoms or the water tiles or certain other aspects that are in Rift. Or, sorry, they're in Elemental. They'll utilize other things in there that aren't in the other game. So that might be the only reason they aren't cross-compatible. But again, make your own game you really want. So what do the cards look like on here? So we're going to get various stuff like, so you flip these over, they'll occasionally come up, as opposed to just horde cards coming out. You'll have to play some of these, and they'll say like, oh, place a webbing transparent over level 2 footman tower in the stack. So we utilize them webbings. We have a couple of those. I just have some from different ones. Each hero with more than 1 heart suffers 1 damage. Players must pass all their mage type towers this turn. The player may spend crystals to cancel this effect. Pass all their cannon type. Until the end turn, all heroes have 1 move point. Yeah, so various different effects like that. There's more that I didn't bring all of them out. Or you're going to get the boss ones, which are going to basically be something like this card. It says, before old Time moves, and when she's destroyed, return a tower in the building adjacent to the old supply. And then you'll have her boss card to fight. Or you have the Time Mage. After Horde advances, do this stuff, then here's her card. She has some different defenses. Lord Blackburn. Before he moves and when he's destroyed, reduce the level of each tower in a building site adjacent to him by 1. And then he has a couple of different things on him. We have like Green Muck with Tainted Tree Marker. And does some special stuff there. And like the Spider Goddess. Get some stuff. So they'll have doubles there. So you have basically a card that's essentially like what that character does, and then their actual card that goes on the board that you have to defeat. Now, you can also treat them like a regular boss, put the miniature on the board, and then just have this off to the side to do damage. That's also a way to do it. The Elemental Rift works very much the same way. So we're going to have a card like this that might be Withering Blossoms. After Horde advance, choose a blossom from play, or remove 2 from the pool. So basically, you can get rid of stuff that you might have options. You have Tentacle Fury. Each player advances 1 tentacle on a building adjacent to the murky ponds. Bad Vibrations. Place a fault line, which is a special tile. We have Eruptions. Move all golden crystals from the lava pool, which is again another special tile. Special Cyclone Spawn Point, which is this special tile here, which moves around the board and summons extra things. So yeah, we have all those, but then we also have stuff like these that summon champions. So Prepare for Trouble has you summon the Anubis and the Hobgoblin War Chief, or make it double, Shadow Champion and Jack-o'-lantern, or ones that just summon the single one that spawns Anubis, Shadow Champion, Pumpkin King, or Hobgoblin War Chief. So they summon the mini bosses out, and then we also have the boss cards. Leviathan does his stuff, summons the Leviathan boss, or elements and summons him. So yeah, they basically play very much the same way in regards of what they do. They either have a special effect that's going to do something, or they're going to summon some type of creature or other game element into play. The expansions will have more stuff that goes with the expansions, so on and so forth. So that's definitely something you could kind of do and mix together. I don't think they're too different overall for that reason. Where's my scenario book? Yeah, I don't have that sitting right here for some reason. But yeah, so, well, that's the big differences there. So that is what we will have for this video. I will end this. We have our Kingdom Rush, Rift in Time, and Elemental Uprising. So there's kind of a very long video, like I said before, but it kind of shows off the differences between one. Again, I want to reiterate, like I said at the beginning, do I think one is necessarily better overall than the other? No, they're mostly played the same. They have a lot of the same elements. They do, like one has champions, one spawns hordes, one has magic spells, one has mods. They do different things. The only reason, like I said, why I think Elemental Uprising might be the better one for players to get is I do not like the mechanics of that portal card removing the towers. If you ignore the removing towers part, I think it's generally, like, only towers a certain level can attack it. Heroes can't be placed on that stuff is all fine. Even if they have multiple come out through the game, it's going to give you a challenge, I believe. But I don't think it's going to be overbearing. And then generally the towers overall in Elemental Rift are a little bit better. I will maybe at some point try and do a video where I will look at all the different heroes and kind of compare them and see if one game has more powerful heroes than the other. Hopefully, because each game is have a different difficulty setting, so maybe one might be a little bit better than the other for heroes, but we'll look at those a little bit later. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys have any other questions, comments, let me know in the comment section, and I will definitely try and answer stuff. See you guys later. Bye.